Hi folks, it's Wednesday again and it's Kendall here with the next installment of our Ode to National Park Sew-Along, which is hosted by Pat Sloan at her website ilovetomakequilts.com. If you haven't done so already, jump over to Pat's website, download this week's pattern, come back here and I'll show you how I do it. Once again, we start where we do every single week with all of our pieces cut out as per Pat's wonderful and clear instructions. You will notice, however, that I have 3 fabrics on my board, even though the directions are for 2 different fabrics, a light and a dark, but I decided to make my larger half square triangle out of a different fabric just for a point of difference to fit in with my overall theme that I'm trying to go for my quilt. So to make the half square triangle here, it is a very large, starting with a 10-inch square. So I do have to bring in my larger ruler for this one. I can't use my normal little 1x12. And we are going to draw that diagonal line from corner to corner. Now for the actual block, we only need 1 half square triangle, but we are using the 2 at a time method as it is the simplest, and I can't really think of a different way to make this one. So once we draw that diagonal line on the wrong side of our light fabric, we're going to put that right sides together with our other square that is the same size of our print fabric, and you'll notice that mine needs a little bit of a haircut. I don't know what I was doing when I was cutting that other square. But after I give that a little bit of a haircut, we are going to take this to the machine and stitch on each side of our drawn line. Once again, we do only need 1 of these, so you could just stitch down one side, but why not make the bonus block while we're here? It's just as simple. While we're at the machine, get it done. Because this is such a large square, I am going to secure that with a few pins, as you can see, so that it doesn't shift when I do take it to the machine, and I can maintain the squareness and the accuracy. While we're here, all of the other smaller squares also become half square triangles, so I am going to get them all ready and take everything to the machine at the same time. Once again, we will stitch down both sides of this drawn line as well, as we do need all of these half square triangles for the block. With all of our stitching now done, if you've seen any of my back catalogue of videos, and I don't know why you wouldn't have, you will know that I like to give these a press first to set those stitches before slicing them in half on our drawn line to create our 2 half square triangles. After we've cut these in half, I will then also press all of these to the darker of the 2 fabrics. Not that you shouldn't take care at all times when pressing open your half square triangles, but on this larger one, remembering that we are working with a bias edge. Now, we are protected a little bit by having that seam already sewn, but you should take extra care to make sure that this doesn't stretch, as it is a much larger seam. So I always like to just finger press it over first before bringing in my iron and setting it down. Now, I don't do the pressing action of touch, lift, touch, lift. I do actually iron, but I do take extra care to make sure that I don't stretch this out. If we do, however, it is no big drama as we are going to trim all of these down. So the final result should be the same, but I just wanted to give that little caveat when working with such a large half square triangle. Now that we do actually have all of those pressed and ready, we will get to the trimming down. Now, I like to trim my half square triangles generally 2 at a time. I trust myself to do that, but we've got the larger one to go first, and we do need to trim that down to 9.5 inches. So I'm bringing in my 12.5 inch square ruler. What I like to do is find the diagonal on that square ruler and place that along our seam line. I then make sure that I have enough fabric outside the desired trim down measurement on all 4 sides. So that includes the fabric under the ruler and outside of the ruler there up on the upper right. Once we've got everything lined up and perfect and we're sure that we've got enough fabric and coverage, we can trim off those first 2 sides. We then rotate the block around and we line everything back up again exactly the same, except this time we can put our 9.5 inches on those freshly cut sides and making sure that we still have our diagonal line along our seam, and we can trim those final 2 sides. Again, extra care needs to be taken when working with a half square triangle of this size, but it is just as simple as all the rest. I'm going to get the rest trimmed down now in this same method, but using much smaller tools and doing it 2 at a time as I prefer, because it's quicker and I'm impatient for results. We need to now take 7 of the 8 smaller half square triangles we created previously, so 1 is a spare, and we need to make a couple of strips of our half square triangles. We need 1 vertical strip and 1 horizontal strip. For the vertical strip, we'll sew 3 half square triangles together, making sure that we've got the darker of our 2 fabrics pointing down and to the left, as you can see me doing here. And for our horizontal row, we also want those triangles to be pointing in the same direction, so down and to the left or away from the block. And we'll start by sewing these in pairs, maintaining our orientation. We'll then give those a press in any direction, it doesn't really matter which, before sewing the 2 pairs together to create that horizontal row and adding the last one to our vertical row. Alrighty, so we've got our vertical strip made and we have our horizontal strip made, and ignore everything I said about the pressing before, because in a moment, this is the magic of filming these weeks before I record voiceovers, I do something off camera that it took me a little minute to figure out, but anyway, we now need to sew that vertical piece on first to make our top half large enough before sewing on our horizontal seam. So I'm just going to pin everything in place here, and as you can see, I had everything pressed up towards the top of the block, creating bulk at those corners of those half square triangles. Now let's see the magic happen. You can't see me doing anything here, but I bring this off the machine and look at that. I've clipped those seam allowances and flipped the points of the half square triangles to go the way that they want to. Now, It took me a minute to figure out, but I had to have done that off camera because this is one continuous filming. So clip into but not past the stitching on your seam allowances there, and then press those points of the half square triangles in the opposite direction as you just saw there. I'm as amazed as you are because I did not realize that I did that. Now I am going to clip one more seam before we press this, and that is at the tip of our large half square triangle to just make that seam allowance also go in the direction that it wants to. This allows for everything to sit really flat, and I've never had any blocks fall apart from doing this clipping into the seam, and everything sits as it wants to, nice and flat and perfect. This also provides for the seam allowance to be going in the right direction for when we add our horizontal piece on the bottom. And I do believe I have clipped all of those as well and changed the way that the seam allowances are going. But we'll wait and see. That time there was no mystery as I did it in front of you and you saw it happening here live. So moving those seam allowances does make it easier to put this block together, and now with that horizontal row added, I am just pressing up towards that larger half square triangle unit, and just like magic, this week's block is done. As with all of Pat's patterns, in the back she has provided a quick mock-up of what a quilt top with this block on repeat would look like, and so I've drawn that out for you in close to my colour schemes here. But I found it interesting that just by alternating every other block and turning it around, you get a completely different look, and I actually really like the way that this one looks. I just threw this together as a quick idea for you to possibly go ahead and make an entire quilt using this block. Thanks for joining me for another fun week, folks, and I hope that you can go out there and create this block as easy as I did. If you haven't already done so, I'd love for you to like the video, share it with a friend that you think may be interested. Click the subscribe button if you haven't already done so. It is free. Most importantly, though, tickle that little bell icon to be notified of all my future releases so you don't miss a thing. I'll see you all again real soon. Bye for now.